Hello, I'm Kriti Mehta. You're watching another episode of Explained with me. South Korea has delivered a historic verdict against its former president. Yoon Suk Yeol has been sentenced to life imprisonment, including compulsory prison work over his failed martial law declaration. The Seoul Central District Court has found him guilty of leading an insurrection. The charge stems from his failed attempt to declare martial law in December 2024. This makes Yoon the first elected head of state in South Korea's democratic era to receive the maximum custodial sentence. The court ruled that Yoon's declaration on December 3, 2024 was designed to disrupt the constitutional order. It was intended to send troops to the National Assembly, block the Assembly Hall, and arrest key political figures, including the Speaker and party leaders. Lawmakers would have also been prevented from gathering to deliberate or vote. In handing down the sentence, the court has highlighted Yoon's refusal to apologize and also his repeated absence from hearings. The court has also cited the enormous social cost of his actions. The martial law declaration, the court said, undermined the political neutrality of the military and police. Moreover, South Korea's credibility internationally took a hit, and domestically, society became sharply divided. The court opted for life imprisonment over the death penalty. While the crime was grave, judges noted that Yoon's plan was not fully executed. He tried to limit the use of force, and most of his actions ultimately failed. In a striking historical reference, the judge compared the case to England in 1649 when King Charles I led troops into Parliament. The point was clear. Even heads of state can commit insurrection if they attack the legislature. Reports say that prosecutors had pushed for the death penalty, arguing Yoon's actions gravely destroyed the constitutional order. They said his martial law disrupted the National Assembly and the Election Commission, threatening South Korea's liberal democratic system. The verdict on Yoon Suk Yeol was broadcast live. Under South Korean law, leading an insurrection can carry three penalties: death, life sentence with labor, or life without labor. The country last imposed a death sentence in 2016 but has not executed anyone since 1997. The latest ruling comes 14 months after what prosecutors described as the gravest threat to South Korea's democracy in decades. A few hours after the night of December 3 in 2024, 190 lawmakers reportedly defied military and police cordons to pass an emergency resolution, causing the lifting of martial law. The South Korean parliament impeached Yoon within 11 days, and the Constitutional Court formally removed him from office 4 months later. Coming to the present, outside the courthouse, reactions were sharply divided after the judgment was passed. Hundreds of Yoon supporters initially cheered when some prosecution evidence was dismissed, waving South Korean and US flags. As the ruling progressed, some turned hostile, shouting at journalists and demanding the judge to step down. When the sentence was announced, some supporters collapsed in tears, fearing for the country. But just about 500 meters away, progressive groups celebrated, though some expressed disappointment that the death penalty was not imposed. Let's in fact listen into some of the reactions that came in.
선거의 결과는 현재 대한민국의 법치가 많이 무너져 있는 상황이기 때문에 무죄 선고를 기대하고 있었지만 앞으로 이제 대한민국이 오늘에 있는 결과는 헤쳐나가야 될 숙제라고 생각하고 있습니다.
마음으로는 무죄가 나오거나 아니면은 다른 결정이 나오길 바랬지만 어느 정도 예상했습니다. 그래서 크게 마음에 동요는 없고 이제 시작이라고 생각을 하고, 그리고 또 많은 시민단체들 그리고 우리 자유혁신 당원들이 오늘 집회에 많이 나온 만큼 함께 그 역사적인 순간을 목격하고 또 기억하고 또 앞으로의 활동에 기폭제로 삼기 위해서 나왔습니다.
이번에 우리 국민들이 너무 양분화가 심했잖아요. 갈라치기. 이런 본보기가 되지 않기 위해서 정말 저는 사형이 돼야 되지 않겠나 싶어요. 절대 계엄은 절대적으로 있어서는 안 되고.
책에서만 보던 계엄을 그때 실시간으로 보고 있었거든요. 그래서 그런 역사가 다시는 반복되지 않도록 좀 더 강한 형벌이 나왔으면 하는 바람이 있었는데 아무래도 2심과 대법원 재판까지 남았기 때문에 감형될까 조금 우려되는 부분도 있고.
오늘 이 선고는 아주 그야말로 역사적으로 좋은 선고라고 봅니다. 적당한 선고라고 봅니다. 왜냐하면은 우선에 계엄을 동원했지만은 우리 국민들이 잘 슬기롭게 대처해가지고 우선 쉽게 말드리면은 피를 흘리지 않았다 하는 점에서 아주 좋은 그러한 결과라고 봅니다.
Notably, Yoon faces 6 additional criminal trials. 2 relate directly to the martial law crisis, including a treason charge, which alleges that the ordered drone incursions into North Korean airspace to provoke confrontation and justify military rule. Yoon has earlier already been sentenced to 5 years for obstructing his own arrest. Now, Thursday's verdict follows previous related rulings that formally established the events of December 3 in 2024 as an insurrection. In January this year, former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo was sentenced to 23 years for his role in the self-coup attempt. On February 12, former Interior Minister Lee Sang-min received 7 years for relaying Yoon's orders to cut power and water to media outlets. 7 co-defendants were also sentenced, that include the former Defense Minister to 30 years, a former intelligence commander to 18 years, the former police chief to 12 years, and the former Seoul police chief to 10 years. Additionally, a police commander was jailed for 3 years, while 2 others were acquitted. Legal experts say these rulings created an environment that made a severe sentence for Yoon more likely. Meanwhile, Yoon Suk Yeol's legal team has immediately called the verdict a predetermined conclusion and a show trial. They have accused the judiciary of bowing to public pressure and political influence, pointing out to cases where opposition politicians were acquitted or where current President Lee Jae-myung faced a suspended trial. Yoon's legal team has vowed to fight to the end, insisting that the truth will be revealed in the court of history. Yoon is reportedly expected to appeal the ruling. Let's listen in to a few statements made by Yoon's lawyer.
명백히 드러난 진실과 우리 헌법과 형사소송에서 정한 법리와 증거 법칙이 무시되는 이런 판결이라면 특검에서 정한 결론대로 내리는 판결이라면 지난 1년간 수십 회에 걸친 공판은 요식행위였습니까? 오늘 법치가 붕괴되는 현실을 보면서 향후 항소를 해야 할지 이런 형사소송 절차를 계속 참여를 해야 될지 회의가 듭니다. 이 부분은 대통령과도 상의를 드리고 변호인들끼리도 논의를 해봐야 될 것 같습니다.
Now, under South Korean law, life imprisonment carries no fixed release date. Parole is theoretically possible after 20 years, but only if the convict demonstrates good conduct and genuine remorse. Historically, every South Korean president who has served a prison sentence has eventually been pardoned. Former President Park Geun-hye was sentenced to 32 years in 2018 for corruption and related offences, but her term was reduced on appeal and she was ultimately pardoned in 2021. Earlier in 1996, military rulers Chun Do-won and Roh Tae-woo received death and 22.5-year sentences for their roles in the 1979 coup and the Gwangju massacre. Both sentences were later reduced on appeal and the men were eventually pardoned. Understanding this context is important as it informs us about the unusual severity of Yoon's sentence, but also raises questions about whether he too could eventually receive a pardon. Let's now turn to Yoon Suk Yeol's political career. Before his presidency, Yoon Suk Yeol built his reputation as a high-profile prosecutor, taking on corruption cases that put him in the national spotlight. He entered politics later, winning the 2022 presidential election on promises of strong governance, law and order, and a firm hand in national affairs. During his term, tension between Yoon and the legislature escalated rapidly. His administration frequently accused lawmakers of obstruction, while Parliament criticized him for overreach and unilateral decision-making. Budget disputes, policy clashes, and controversial appointments further strained relations. These conflicts intensified political polarization, leading to mass protests and public debates across South Korea. Yoon's relationship with key parties grew increasingly hostile, and his approach to governance was seen as confrontational by many political observers. The crisis culminated in December 2024 when Yoon attempted to declare martial law. This attempt shocked the nation and sparked the chain of events that ultimately led to his impeachment and the historic court verdict. Beyond the martial law crisis, corruption has been a central issue in South Korean politics for decades. During his own presidency, Yoon's administration made a controversial decision to pardon Samsung Electronics chairman Lee Jae-yong, who had served prison time for bribery and was released and pardoned in 2022 to boost the economy. Critics said that the Samsung pardon and other decisions stoked public fears of elite influence over justice, further blurring lines between government and big business. The setting of corruption allegations and powerful corporate links added fuel to political friction, making the martial law attempt not just a legal crisis but part of a larger national debate on accountability and governance. Viewers, for now, that's all for this episode of Explained. Stay tuned as we bring you more in-depth insights and stories that matter.